Imagine a thread stretching back centuries, connecting modern Taiwan to its indigenous roots. This is a story of survival and resilience. For over 400 years, outsiders arrived, colonizers, traders, and settlers. Yet Taiwan's indigenous tribes endured. Their journey is not just one of loss, but of adaptation and fierce resistance. They fought, negotiated, and retreated when needed, always finding ways to survive. Understanding their story is key to understanding Taiwan today. Long before Europeans arrived, Taiwan was home to diverse peoples, hunters, farmers, and seafarers, deeply connected to the land and spirit world. Colonizers did not find an empty land, but a complex, ancient society. The clash that followed shaped Taiwan's destiny, leaving a legacy still felt today. As Taiwan forges its identity, the story of its first peoples is more important than ever. It highlights a spirit of independence and a deep love for this land. Reviving indigenous languages and traditions is about building a more inclusive future. Listening to these voices helps us understand Taiwan's present and imagine its future. The unbroken chain of survival continues, inspiring all who call Taiwan home. This is not a simple tale of victims and conquerors, but of people who shaped their own fate. Their strength and traditions endure, woven into the fabric of Taiwan. The story of Taiwan's indigenous peoples is a testament to the enduring power of identity. Before the 17th century, Taiwan was a world unto itself, a mosaic of Austronesian peoples. Dozens of distinct tribes, each with their own language and customs, lived across the island. Plains tribes like the Tsou farmed, mountain tribes like the Atayal and Bunun hunted, and coastal groups like the Yami and Tsou thrived by the sea. Traditions like Atayal facial tattoos and Bunun harmonic chants were central to their identity. Societies were governed by their own laws, some matrilineal, others led by councils of elders. Conflicts and alliances shaped their world long before outsiders arrived. Taiwan's indigenous peoples were part of a vast Austronesian network stretching across the Pacific. This deep history gave them a powerful sense of place and belonging. It was this ancient, diverse world that would soon face the challenge of colonization. The 17th century brought European powers to Taiwan's shores. The Dutch built Fort Zeelandia in 1624, seeking to control trade and the local tribes. The Spanish soon arrived in the north, sparking rivalry and conflict. Indigenous tribes navigated these new powers, sometimes resisting, sometimes allying. The Dutch imposed taxes, demanded labor, and introduced new diseases, devastating local populations. Yet mountain tribes like the Atayal and Bunun remained independent, their lands unconquered. The Dutch era lasted less than 40 years, but set a pattern of divide and rule. Colonization brought new technologies and pressures, forever changing indigenous life. Plains tribes bore the brunt, facing the first wave of cultural and economic disruption. The strategy of playing villages against each other would echo for centuries. This was only the beginning of a much longer struggle for Taiwan's indigenous peoples. The island's fate was now tied to global trade and conflict. In 1662, Koxinga expelled the Dutch and established the Kingdom of Tungning, bringing the first major wave of Han Chinese settlers. Soon after, the Qing Dynasty took control, needing land for their growing population. The Qing set a frontier line to separate Han settlers from indigenous territories, but it was constantly pushed westward. Plains tribes, weakened by earlier colonization, faced pressure to assimilate or move. Many intermarried or lost their languages and traditions through gradual sinicization. The Tsou, once dominant, saw their identity eroded without a single decisive battle. Mountain tribes remained largely autonomous, fiercely defending their lands. The Qing called them raw barbarians, and the frontier was a place of constant tension. For over 2 centuries, the mountains were a bastion of indigenous independence. This divide, assimilated plains, independent mountains, defined Taiwan's colonial landscape. The stage was set for an even more systematic wave of colonization. The struggle for survival and autonomy continued. In 1895, Taiwan was ceded to Japan, ushering in a new era of colonial rule. The Japanese sought to control the entire island, including the resource-rich mountains. They mapped, classified, and relocated indigenous communities, aiming for total control. Cultural practices like headhunting and facial tattooing were outlawed. Resistance was fierce. Tribes like the Bunun, Atayal, and Tsou fought back in brutal guerrilla wars. The Wuxie incident of 1930 saw the Tsou rise up, only to face devastating retaliation. Japanese rule brought infrastructure and education, but also forced assimilation. Some indigenous people were recruited into the Japanese military. The legacy of this era is complex violent subjugation, but also modernization on colonial terms. The scars of this period run deep, but so do memories of resistance. The fight for identity and autonomy never ceased. After World War II, Taiwan came under Kuomintang rule, bringing new policies of assimilation. Indigenous peoples were labeled mountain compatriots and pressured to adopt Chinese identity. Indigenous languages were banned in schools. Children were forced to learn Mandarin and take Chinese names. Economic pressures forced many to leave ancestral lands for low-paying city jobs. Cultural and linguistic suppression created a generation disconnected from their roots. Yet, elders quietly preserved stories and traditions at home. Community bonds and ties to the land, though weakened, endured. The Kuomintang's policies ironically sparked a new desire among indigenous youth to reclaim their heritage. The seeds of cultural revival were sown in this era of quiet endurance. A new movement was about to emerge. The end of martial law in 1987 sparked a wave of indigenous activism. Young activists demanded recognition, land rights, and respect for their cultures. Protests led to the official recognition of indigenous peoples in 1994. Laws were passed to protect languages and traditions. Schools began teaching indigenous history. The number of recognized tribes grew, and lost traditions were revived. The revival is personal. Young people learn ancestral songs, languages, and crafts. This renaissance blends old ways with new ideas, keeping culture alive in the modern world. Challenges remain. Many languages are endangered, and economic disparities persist. The struggle for land and autonomy continues. Psychological wounds from centuries of discrimination have not fully healed. Yet the revival is a source of hope and pride. Every act of cultural renewal is a defiance of colonial history. The fight for identity is ongoing, shaping Taiwan's future. Taiwan's indigenous story is one of endurance and adaptation. Every generation has fought to keep their culture alive, from mountain warriors to elders teaching language in secret. Today, indigenous voices are rising in art, music, and literature, reshaping what it means to be Taiwanese. Artists like Abao and writers like Shemin Rapongan share their heritage with the world. Embracing Austronesian roots gives Taiwan a unique identity, distinct from mainland China. The dialogue between indigenous and Han Taiwanese is building a more inclusive society. The fight for equality and cultural autonomy continues, but hope is stronger than ever. The ancestors would be proud to see their descendants reclaiming their place in Taiwan's story. The unbroken chain of survival pulls Taiwan forward, guided by its oldest voices. The future of Taiwan is richer for honoring its indigenous past.